You know, it's an extraordinary thing, this tendency we have to take life so very seriously. Most people seem to go through existence as if it were some kind of long examination, with grades to be earned and punishments to be avoided. We behave as though the universe were an enormous schoolroom and we've somehow forgotten the subject. So we keep looking nervously at our neighbor's paper. We think there's something we're supposed to be doing, that there's a meaning, a duty, a grand purpose that we must fulfill, and if we fail, we'll be cast into some cosmic detention hall. But you see, this is the great illusion. The universe never told you that you had to be serious. That was your idea. Somewhere along the line, we imagined that existence was a business, that the goal was to survive, to achieve, to make a mark, to win the game. Yet when you look closely, you find that all of nature is not serious at all. The birds are not trying to succeed at being birds. The flowers are not competing for applause. The clouds drift and dissolve without regret. Everything simply is, with effortless sincerity. And that, perhaps, is what we've forgotten. We, on the other hand, have developed this marvelous capacity to worry about everything. We call it being responsible, but it's mostly a form of well-dressed anxiety. We treat life as though it were a problem to be solved, rather than a mystery to be experienced. Now, the trouble with taking yourself too seriously is that you begin to think of yourself as something apart from life, as a little manager of existence, overseeing the whole operation. But tell me, did you start your own heartbeat this morning? Did you schedule your next breath? Of course not. The very thing that sustains you happens without your permission. So who exactly is running the show? The great cosmic joke is that the part of you that worries, strives, and controls, that little voice in your head, is not the one in charge. It's just a commentary track added after the movie's already begun. You see, seriousness is born from the illusion of separation. When you think you're a tiny self, locked inside a bag of skin, surrounded by an indifferent universe, then naturally, you must fight for survival. You must be vigilant. You must protect your image and your progress and your plans. But once you see through that illusion, once you recognize that you are the universe, playing the game of being a person, the whole tone of the music changes. Then life becomes a kind of cosmic theater. You realize that the roles of hero and villain, saint and sinner, success and failure are all part of the same play, and the divine actor behind them is having the time of his life. The serious man, you see, is always tense because he thinks he's holding up the world. But the awakened man laughs because he's realized the world holds him. The one who takes life as a problem carries a great burden. The one who takes it as a dance moves effortlessly. And so the beginning of wisdom, and I mean real wisdom, not the solemn kind, is the discovery that there's nothing to prove, that existence was never asking you to pass a test. It was inviting you to join the play. You can see it in the eyes of a child before they learn to pretend. They don't do joy, they are joy. They don't earn laughter, they become it. That is the natural state of the universe before we smother it with seriousness. So perhaps the first step toward awakening is not to meditate harder or to collect spiritual badges of progress, but simply to relax, to allow yourself to be as unguarded as a flower in the sun, as unhurried as the stars at night. For when you stop taking yourself so seriously, you start to see that the cosmos itself is playful. The galaxies whirl, not because they must, but because that's their way of laughing. And when you feel that laughter echoing through your own being, you begin to understand what the mystics and poets have always hinted at, that life is not a business to be managed, but a song to be sung, a wave to be surfed, a moment to be lived and let go. So, before we go any further into this journey, let's remember this simple thing. The universe has never been serious about you. It has been curious about you, delighted by you, expressing itself through you, but never serious. The seriousness was your idea, and you may let it go whenever you wish. You know, it's a curious thing about mushrooms. They have no sense of self-importance whatsoever. They don't file tax returns. They don't compete for followers, and they don't seem to be terribly anxious about their future. Yet without them, the world as we know it simply couldn't exist. Beneath the forest floor, in that dark, quiet place where roots meet stone and soil, there lives a vast and secret network, a living web of mycelium, threading its way through the earth, linking one tree to another, one life to another. You might call it the internet of the forest, but it's far older, far wiser, and far less self-conscious than ours. Now, this mycelial web doesn't try to control or dominate. It simply connects. It shares information, nutrients, and life. A fallen leaf becomes food for a root hundreds of meters away, and a dying tree whispers its last sugars into the soil so that new growth may arise. Isn't it beautiful? The forest is not a collection of separate things. It's a single, breathing organism, each part feeding and being fed by all the others. And the funny thing is, that's exactly what you are. You see, you've been trained to believe you're an isolated bubble of consciousness, a separate mind inside a skin-encapsulated ego. But in truth, you're not in the universe, you are the universe. Just as a wave is the ocean expressing itself for a moment as a crest of foam, you are the process by which life looks back at itself and says, "Ah, how marvelous." But you've been hypnotized into thinking you're something apart, a lonely little fungus trying to survive on a big indifferent rock. And because of that illusion, you suffer. The mushroom, on the other hand, knows better. It doesn't think, "I must connect." It is connection. It doesn't ask, "How do I belong?" It is belonging. Now, imagine if you lived like that, not as an isolated self, but as a node in the infinite web of being. Every breath you take, every thought you think, every heartbeat you feel, all of it is an echo of the same great pulse that moves through galaxies and grains of sand alike. When the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, he wasn't communing with some otherworldly deity. He was listening to that same mycelial whisper, the song of interdependence, the realization that nothing exists on its own, and therefore nothing truly dies. You see, we only fear death because we believe we're separate from the whole. But once you glimpse the web, truly glimpse it, the idea of isolation becomes absurd. The leaf that falls in autumn does not mourn its passing, for it knows it will rise again as part of the soil, as part of the tree, as part of the breeze that carries the next seed. So it is with you. The form changes, the pattern dances, but the life that moves through it remains. And when you begin to see yourself in that way, your whole attitude toward existence shifts. You stop clutching. You stop insisting that life must go your way. You stop fearing the dark, because the dark, you see, is not the enemy of the light, it's the soil from which light grows. The mushroom thrives in the shadows, not because it's afraid of the sun, but because it understands that creation happens in secret, in silence, in the unseen. And so it is with you. All your striving, your worrying, your desperate attempts to find yourself, they obscure the simple truth that you were never lost. You were always part of the web, even in your confusion, especially in your confusion. You don't have to force connection. You don't have to build bridges between yourself and the world. The bridge was never broken, only forgotten. And when you see this, really see it, the boundaries begin to dissolve. The air that enters your lungs was exhaled by the trees. The water you drink was once cloud, river, ocean, tear. The thoughts you think arise from a collective ocean of mind far deeper than you can measure. Everything is feeding everything else, and nothing stands alone. And that, my friends, is why the mushroom is such a marvelous teacher. It shows us what we've tried so hard to forget, that life's secret is not control, but communion. When you can feel that, when you sense, even for a moment, that the pulse in your wrist is the pulse of the cosmos itself, you begin to laugh again. Not because it's funny in the ordinary sense, but because it's so exquisitely obvious. You were never alone. You were never disconnected. You were simply pretending to be. And the moment you remember the whole forest comes alive again, whispering softly through every leaf, "Welcome home." You know, one of the most fascinating games we humans play is this endless search for meaning. We seem convinced that somewhere, hidden behind the curtain of existence, there's a great cosmic instruction manual explaining what it all means and what we're supposed to do with it. And so we go on translating scriptures, decoding equations, climbing mountains, sitting cross-legged for hours, all in the hope that life will finally confess its secret purpose to us. But the secret, my dear friends, is that there is no secret. Meaning isn't something hiding behind life. Meaning is what's happening right now. You see, when you listen to music, you don't dance in order to arrive at the final note. You dance because every note is the point. When you watch a cat stretch in the sunlight, you don't ask, "But what's it trying to achieve?" You simply smile, because its beingness is its purpose. And yet, here we are, furrowing our brows, asking the universe, "Why am I here?" It's a bit like the eyes trying to see themselves, or a flame trying to burn itself. You are the very meaning you seek, searching for itself in circles. The trouble begins when we treat meaning as a product, something to be manufactured, earned, or imported from someone else's philosophy. That's when we start saying, "My life should have meaning," or "I must find my purpose." But who is this I that's going to find it? It's like the tongue trying to taste itself, charmingly impossible. Now, the great cosmic joke is that when you stop looking for meaning, you suddenly discover it everywhere. It was never absent. You were simply too busy chasing it to notice. A raindrop sliding down a window pane, the laughter of a child, the warmth of a cup of tea in your hands. These are not symbols pointing to some higher truth. They are the truth, expressed in forms you can feel and see. But the mind, oh, the mind loves to complicate things. It insists there must be more than this, as if this were somehow insufficient. Yet what could be more astonishing than this moment, unrepeatable, unfathomable, radiant? You see, we've inherited the notion that meaning lies in goals that you live in order to achieve something. We've even turned spirituality into a kind of cosmic career ladder, climbing toward enlightenment as though it were an Olympic event. But the awakened man does not climb. He sits under the tree and laughs. Because the meaning of the dance is the dancing itself. We are all part of a great performance. And the point is not to reach the end of the play, but to play it beautifully. Even tragedy has its grace when you know it's theater. Now, I'm not saying that your desires or ambitions are wrong, only that they are waves on the ocean. You may chase them if you wish, but remember, the chasing is also the ocean playing with itself. When you realize this, you stop asking, "What is the meaning of life?" and start wondering, "What does life mean by me?" For you are not the observer of existence, you are its expression. You are how the universe explores its own possibilities. And when you see that, you can't help but smile, because suddenly everything makes perfect sense without needing to make sense. Meaning, you discover, is not something you get from life. It's the way you look at life. It's the quality of your attention. A flower has no agenda, yet its very presence nourishes the world. So too with you. When you stop trying to be significant and simply allow yourself to be sincere, the philosopher seeks to explain the mystery. The sage simply enjoys it. And you, if you're wise, will learn to do both, to wonder without worry, to live without demanding answers. For the question, "What is the meaning of life?" is a bit like asking, "What is the meaning of a cloud?" It doesn't mean something, it is something. It floats, it shifts, it rains, it vanishes, and in all of that, it fulfills its nature perfectly. And so do you. Meaning is not hidden behind life like treasure in a cave. It's right here, woven into the sound of your breathing, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the play of light on your skin. When you stop trying to make life meaningful, you begin to see that it already was. And in that moment, the universe laughs softly, not at you, but through you, because it's delighted you finally caught the joke. Now, if you've followed me this far, you may have already begun to sense it, that strange shimmer at the heart of all this seriousness, that wink behind the curtain of existence. And that, my friends, is what I like to call the cosmic joke. The cosmic joke is not cruel. It's the laughter of the universe discovering itself again and again. It's the revelation that the thing you've been seeking with such fervor, enlightenment, salvation, peace, God, whatever name you prefer, has been hiding behind your very eyes, pretending to look for itself. You see, the game we're playing is one of hide and seek. The self, the great, boundless awareness that is the essence of all things, hides from itself on purpose. It becomes you and me and the cat and the stars, and then forgets that it did so. It hides so well that it believes itself to be lost, and then spends lifetimes trying to be found. But the punchline is this: you were never lost. Imagine a wave rising from the ocean and saying, I must find the sea. I must meditate and purify myself until I return to the ocean. The other waves, if they were kind, would smile and say, my dear, you are already there. You never left. And when the wave realizes that, what can it do but laugh? That laughter is the moment of awakening, the recognition that the seeker was the sought, that the question was the answer, that there was never anything outside the dance. You see, the ego, that little collection of memories, fears, and hopes you call me, is a magnificent illusion. Not a mistake, not something to destroy, but a work of art. It's like a mask worn by the actor who is life itself. And the trick, the grand joke, is that the actor forgets he's wearing it. We spend our days taking this mask terribly seriously, polishing it, defending it, trying to make it immortal, and all the while, the one wearing it is eternal. When you finally catch yourself in the act of pretending, when you realize that the whole drama of my life, my progress, my story, is a divine improvisation, there's only one honest response left. You burst out laughing. Not the laughter of mockery, but the laughter of relief. The laughter of a man who's been holding his breath for decades and finally exhales. For all along, life has been playing both sides of the game, the hider and the seeker, the sinner and the saint, the teacher and the student. Every birth, every death, every heartbreak, every joy, it's all the same dance, the same rhythm, the same self-saying, peekaboo, there I am again. And when you truly see this, not as a belief, but as a direct experience, something beautiful happens. The heavy seriousness falls away. You no longer need to defend your opinions, your status, your supposed importance. You become light, playful, effortless. You begin to see that even your mistakes were part of the choreography, that even your suffering was the universe's way of tickling you into wakefulness. This is why the enlightened ones are never solemn. They smile with that peculiar knowing smile, the one that says, so this is how God amuses himself. The cosmic joke is not a theory, it's a shift in vision. It's realizing that what you took to be the prison is actually the playground, that the walls of your limitation are made of smoke, and that your so-called self is nothing more than the cosmos peering through a pair of eyes. And so, once the joke lands, once you get it, you can never quite go back. You can play the same roles, wear the same masks, live the same daily life, but the seriousness is gone. It's like acting in a tragedy while knowing you're on stage. You still cry, you still feel, but somewhere deep inside, you're smiling, because you know it's all part of the show. That's the liberation everyone's searching for. Not escape from the play, but participation without the panic. You can laugh and weep in the same breath, knowing both are expressions of the same cosmic humor. And so when someone asks, what is enlightenment? I might say, it's the realization that you've been telling yourself an elaborate joke, and the punchline is you. And so, once you've heard the laughter of the cosmos, once the punchline lands, you begin to notice something else, something that at first feels rather strange and perhaps a little terrifying. You realize that you are not in control. Oh yes, we like to pretend we are. We wake up in the morning and think, right, today I'm going to do this and that, as though existence were a sort of factory and we were the manager issuing commands. But if you look closely, you'll see that most of what happens, from your thoughts to your breath to the beating of your heart, happens quite without your permission. You don't decide to fall asleep. You fall into it. You don't decide to love. It happens to you. You don't decide to think. Thoughts simply arise like bubbles in a glass of champagne. And yet, the ego, this curious little executive we've invented, walks around taking credit for it all. It says, I am the thinker of thoughts, the chooser of choices, the doer of deeds. But if you examine this I carefully, it begins to slip through your fingers. Who is it? Exactly. That's in control. Can you find the one pulling the levers? Can you locate the operator behind the curtain? You may search high and low, but you'll discover that the supposed controller is a ghost, a marvelous, convincing illusion, like the reflection of the moon in a still pond. And the moment you see that, there's a kind of shock, because the idea of me being in charge has been our favorite bedtime story for thousands of years. We love to believe we're steering the ship. But look, the waves are steering themselves, and the wind blows of its own accord. Now, the ego doesn't like this discovery one bit. It says, but if I'm not in control, won't everything fall apart? Huh? And I say, my dear, have you looked around lately? It's already falling apart and it's doing beautifully. Life, in its spontaneity, in its wildness, in its utter refusal to be tamed, is the miracle. The trees don't consult a 5-year plan before they blossom. The galaxies don't vote on which way to spin. They simply are moving in harmony without a conductor. And so it is with you. The heartbeat, the laughter, the tears, the sudden idea that comes from nowhere, these are all the universe happening as you. Letting go of control, then, is not about being passive or careless. It's about realizing that there never was a separate you to be in control in the first place. It's like a wave realizing that it doesn't have to push itself forward. The ocean does it automatically. You see, the more you try to control life, the more it slips away. The more you let it move of its own accord, the more harmonious it becomes. The paradox, of course, is that only when you stop trying to control do you discover a deeper order, one that was there all along. Consider how your body works. You eat, you breathe, you sleep, and 1,000 intricate processes occur without your conscious supervision. If you had to manage them manually, you'd never make it through breakfast. And yet, they happen perfectly, intelligently, without effort. Now imagine applying that same trust to the rest of your life. Imagine letting existence run itself, as it always has, while you simply enjoy the show. This is what the sages call Wu Wei, effortless action. It's not inaction. It's action so in tune with the flow of things that it feels like you're being carried. You still play your part, you speak, you walk, you create, but the strain is gone. The effort of forcing life to obey your will is replaced by the ease of participation. When you let go of the controller, you discover that life has been moving perfectly well without your supervision. In fact, your attempts to steer were often what made the ride so bumpy. And once you see this clearly, a great relief sets in. You realize you can breathe again, deeply, freely. You can allow each moment to unfold without demanding that it fit your plan. You begin to trust the intelligence of the whole, the same intelligence that grows your hair and spins the stars. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop trying to control everything, you actually become more capable, more creative, more alive. You respond instead of react. You move in harmony rather than opposition. Like a dancer who no longer counts the steps, you become the dance itself. So when people ask me, Alan, how do I let go? I say, you can't, and that's how. Because letting go isn't something you do. It's what happens when you see you were never holding on. The river flows on its own. The heart beats on its own. And when you truly see that, you can sit back, smile, and finally enjoy the ride. For the universe is not a machine to be managed, but a symphony to be played, and you were never the conductor. You are the music. Now, once you've loosened your grip on this illusion of control, you begin to see something rather marvelous. That life is not a straight line, from good to bad, from light to dark, from beginning to end. It's a dance. And every dance, you see, requires both movement and stillness, rise and fall, light and shadow. We have this curious idea that happiness ought to be constant, that joy must be unbroken, that peace means the absence of all disturbance. But you only notice the light because there is shadow. You only appreciate the melody because of the silence between the notes. The contrast is the meaning. The dark makes the light visible. And yet, we spend our lives trying to escape one half of the dance. We want the light without the shadow, the pleasure without the pain, the gain without the loss. But that's like trying to hear the sound of one hand clapping. You see, existence is a polarity, a vibration. Every up implies a down. Every in implies an out. Every birth implies a death. Without one, the other has no sense at all. It's not that they are enemies, they are partners, interdependent, eternally entwined. Just look at your breath. You cannot inhale forever. The very act of breathing depends on letting go. And so it is with life. Its beauty lies not in its permanence, but in its rhythm. When you truly understand this, suffering changes its character. It ceases to feel like punishment and begins to look like part of the pattern, like the shadows in a painting that make the brightness shine. The mushroom knows this truth instinctively. It grows in decay, in the soil of death and rot. Yet out of that darkness it rises soft, pale, quietly alive. The forest depends on this mysterious recycling. The death of one form becomes the nourishment of another. Nothing is wasted. In just the same way, your sadness feeds your depth, your failures enrich your compassion, your losses make space for wonder. The dark is not an obstacle to the light, it is its cradle. But of course, the ego doesn't like this. It wants the good without the bad. It wants to be the hero of the story without admitting that the villain is also part of itself. And so it fights the inevitable, clutching at the sunlight while cursing the shadow that follows. That is why so many people are weary, not because life is cruel, but because they resist half of it. When you finally stop resisting, when you see that sorrow and joy are two movements of the same cosmic dance, a strange peace enters your heart. You no longer need to escape anything, for there is nowhere to go that is not already sacred. And in that acceptance, you find freedom. For to accept life in its wholeness, not only its shining moments, but its darkest hours, is to realize that you are the wholeness itself. The light does not fight the shadow, it embraces it, and together they make the world visible. You might say that enlightenment is the discovery that everything is light, even the dark. Not the blinding light of perfection, but the gentle light of understanding that shines through impermanence. When you see this, compassion blooms naturally, because you realize that everyone is part of this same dance. The angry man, the frightened woman, the lonely child, all of them are movements of the same music, all of them learning to find their rhythm. And so, you no longer wish to conquer darkness. You wish to dance with it. You don't try to erase your pain. You listen to what it's teaching. You don't flee from death. You bow to its necessity. You don't condemn your own shadow. You learn to waltz with it until you see that it was never separate from you at all. The dance of light and shadow is the very pulse of existence. Without it, there would be no beauty, no change, no life. And when you surrender to that rhythm, when you let it move through you without resistance, you begin to discover something extraordinary. The darkness is not the opposite of life, it is its depth. In that moment, you stop asking for light to triumph, and instead, you whisper, "Let the dance continue." For in every flicker of darkness and light, you hear the laughter of the cosmos keeping time. Now, once you've understood that life is a dance of opposites, that the light and shadow are forever intertwined, you begin to see that the wisest way to live is not in tension with that truth, but in rhythm with it. And this rhythm, my friends, is what I call play. You see, play is not something children do before they grow up. Play is what life itself is doing all the time. The universe didn't come into being out of obligation or purpose, it blossomed out of sheer exuberance. The galaxies are not ticking machines, they are whirling dancers. The problem is that we humans have forgotten how to play. We've made life into a task, a race, a grim duty to be performed. We say things like, "I must find myself," as if the self were hiding under a rock somewhere, waiting to be retrieved. But you can't find yourself because you are what's looking. So the practice, if we can call it that, is to remember how to play again. Now, people often ask me, "Alan, how do I live more spiritually?" And I tell them it's very simple. Stop trying so hard. Have you ever watched a cat? A cat doesn't meditate on how to be graceful, it just is. It stretches, it lounges, it moves with the quiet confidence of something completely at ease in its own fur. You could say enlightenment is nothing more than the rediscovery of that ease. It's not a state you achieve, it's a way you remember. So, begin your mornings not with a list of goals, but with curiosity. Before you reach for your phone, feel the air move through you. Hear the sounds outside your window. Notice how effortlessly the breath goes in and out. You are already participating in the great cosmic rhythm without doing a thing. When you walk, walk as though the ground were kissing your feet. When you speak, let your words be like wind, coming and going of their own accord. When you laugh, let it be for no reason at all. Play doesn't mean foolishness. It means freedom. It means being fully engaged in the moment without clinging to the result. You see, the secret of the great artists, musicians, even mystics, is that they never truly work. They play with the medium of life. The painter plays with color. The poet plays with words. The sage plays with silence. And the universe, you might say, plays with energy, form, and consciousness. It's all one great improvisation. You don't have to control the song, just listen for your part and join in. Now, to play well, you must also be willing to lose. That's what frightens the ego, you see. It says, if I let go, I might fail. But failure, too, is part of the rhythm. Every wrong note is still part of the music. The true musician knows this. He doesn't stop when he misses a note. He turns it into the next phrase. So it is with life. You stumble, you falter, you laugh, you rise again, and all the while, the universe keeps dancing. The practice of play is the art of trusting that whatever happens, it belongs. And here's something rather delightful. The more lightly you play, the more gracefully life responds. The less you grip, the more it flows. You can see this when you try to remember a name. The harder you strain, the further it runs. But the moment you relax, there it is. This is the same with wisdom, creativity, and peace. They don't come through force, they come through spaciousness. So if you wish to live fully, stop demanding that life explain itself. Instead, participate in its play. laugh at its surprises, bow to its mysteries, and take part in the great improvisation of being. When you stop treating life like a problem and start treating it like a dance, everything changes. Even the difficult moments become part of the choreography. And perhaps the greatest play of all is laughter itself. For laughter is the sound of the universe, remembering that it was never in trouble. So laugh often. Laugh at your seriousness. Laugh at your worries. Laugh at the grand cosmic theater of me. That laughter, not born of cynicism, but of clarity, is the purest form of prayer. For when you laugh without reason, the universe laughs with you. That, my friends, is the beginning of real spirituality, not solemnity, not striving, but play. And now, as we come to the end of our little journey, perhaps you've begun to sense it, that quiet laughter that hums beneath everything. The laughter that doesn't mock or ridicule, but celebrates. The laughter that says, "Ah, yes, I see now how beautiful it all is." This, my friends, is what I call the laughter of God. It is not the thunder of judgment, nor the voice of command, but the soft chuckle of eternity playing hide and seek with itself. It's the joy that bubbles up when you realize there was never anything to fear, never anything to prove, never anything missing. You see, the whole universe is a kind of divine joke, not in the sense of being silly, but in the sense of being wonderfully unnecessary. It doesn't have to exist, yet it does. And the miracle is that it exists not out of duty, but out of delight. You and I, the stars and the dust, the laughter and the tears, we are all the universe laughing through 1,000 forms. Every sound, every heartbeat, every gesture is that laughter echoing in time. When the saints and mystics speak of enlightenment, they are not describing the acquisition of some special power. They are describing the discovery of this laughter, the unshakable joy that arises when you see that everything is it. Even your confusion, even your sorrow, even your longing to be free, all of it is the dance of the divine pretending to be you. And when that realization dawns, even for a moment, your whole being relaxes. You breathe out as if for the first time the burden drops away. You no longer have to save yourself because there was never anything wrong. You no longer have to chase meaning because meaning has been here all along, smiling at you through every blade of grass. The laughter of God is the sound of perfect acceptance, the realization that nothing is outside the play, that even your mistakes were part of the script. And so, the awakened man does not withdraw from the world, he plays in it more freely. He laughs and weeps and eats and sleeps, knowing that all of it is the same divine motion. He may teach, or dance, or wash the dishes, but whatever he does it as the universe expressing itself. You see, the final paradox is this. When you stop taking yourself seriously, you finally take life seriously in the right way, not as a duty but as a gift, not as an ordeal but as art. Life becomes a performance without an audience, a dance without a destination. You care deeply, yet you are no longer afraid. You give yourself completely to the moment because you know that nothing can be lost. And in that surrender, the laughter of God becomes your own. You find yourself smiling at things that once frightened you, forgiving what once enraged you, and loving what once seemed unlovable. For how can you not love what you now see as yourself? This is the secret the sages whisper, the truth the mystics sing, the insight the child knows instinctively, that the universe is not a problem to be solved, but a celebration to be joined. So laugh. Laugh as the ocean laughs in its waves, as the wind laughs in the leaves, as the stars laugh in their silence. Laugh because there is nothing else to do once you've seen through the illusion. You have been God all along, pretending to be human, pretending to forget, just for the sheer joy of remembering again. And when you awaken not as a goal achieved, but as a homecoming realized, you will find that everything you've ever sought was playing hide and seek in your own heart. So let the play continue. Let the dance unfold, and whenever you feel lost, just listen beneath the noise of your thoughts, beneath the hum of the world, and you will hear it again. That soft, eternal laughter, the laughter of God. And in that laughter, you'll know that everything, absolutely everything, was perfectly all right from the very beginning.